This is Canada Reads American Style, featuring two friends who love Canada Reads and Canadian literature. Welcome our host Rebecca from Michigan and Tara from Ontario.
Hi everyone, it's Rebecca and Tara, and we are excited to introduce Keegan Connor Tracy, an award-winning actor, voiceover artist, writer, and director from British Columbia. She has starred in the TV show Once Upon a Time as the Blue Fairy and as Belle in Disney's popular Descendents film franchise. Her first short film, which by the way I watched on your website, which is wonderful, the bilingual The Girl / La Fille, won the Jury President Award at the Galactic Imaginarium Festival and the Best Indie Short at the Las Vegas Movie Awards. And she has directed 3 TV movies to date. She is, however, for our purposes, championing the novel Greenwood by Michael Christie on the 2023 CBC's Canada Reads debates. That was long, but welcome, Keegan.
Hi, thank you for having me. That was quite an introduction.
Well, I wanted to make sure everybody had the highlights of your life and career, so I wanted to make sure all of that in there.
Well, the Blue Fairy always shows up in that one, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, Keegan, let's just jump right in to the book. So you're championing Greenwood by Michael Christie. Did you know that this is the book that you wanted to champion, or did you choose it from a list that the producers gave you? And what made you select it?
First of all, they don't have a list that they give you and say, you pick one of these. Like, you definitely have a lot of autonomy in what you can pick, which is guided by, a myriad factors, including what books have been in the past, what, who has been represented in the past, what publisher, there's all these different, it's like, I keep saying it's like casting a movie when I'm like shifting headshots around going, well, they fit with them and they fit with them. And, so there's a lot of ways in which it has to fit.
Yeah.
And so when they first called me, it was shortly before Christmas, and I had, I was going through this fairly extensive list of things. I would say, what about this one? Oh, that one already did, or somebody already did that one, or they already won. And so luckily I'm a big reader, so I had a long list, and then I just kept trying books. They would send me a book and I would try it and sort of be like, okay, this is not the one. What about this one? What about this one? And then I thought for a minute that it was going to be Ruth Ozecki's Tale for the Time Being. Okay. Which I really loved. I was really keen to get a chance to meet someone like Ruth, who's also a filmmaker and who's a Buddhist nun. And I was, it sort of crossed a lot of things off my list for me. But I just felt it had a very pervasive theme of suicide. And I just felt in this climate, at this time, in this moment, I couldn't say to all of Canada and elsewhere, read this book about this girl who wants to kill herself. It didn't take place in Canada. It didn't feel like a Canadian story. So I kept looking and looking and looking. And I finally was sort of desperate enough that I just looked up like great Canadian books, and Beggar's Garden came up, and I had read it years ago and loved it. And then when it popped up, Greenwood popped up. And I remembered that a friend had given it to me. Oh my gosh, my friend Tracy gave it to me maybe 6 or 8 months prior. And I hadn't read it yet. So I just sort of plucked it out of its place where I had put it and started reading it. And once I got, once I got into the meat of the story with Everett and that chase and just everything and how it went across Canada, I was like, I think this is the book. So they had to wait for me to finish it at Christmas time and then be able to say, yep, this is the book.
Oh, that's fascinating. Thank you.
That was a long explanation for that.
No, it was great. No, that was really good. Thank you.
And I'm just curious, since you said you're a reader, because I don't necessarily think always the defenders are big readers. So what types of things do you normally read? Like, what's your go-to reading?
I mean, I certainly like a wide variety of things, but I tend to read, I'm using my little air quotes, like literature. I love things with that won the Giller, that were on the Scotiabank Giller Prize shortlist, or that won the Pulitzer, or, those are books that I tend to gravitate to versus, for example, say like, oh, this is a New York Times bestseller. Well, sometimes those are, really popular, but not necessarily the kinds of sort of weighty books that I enjoy reading.
Do you think for the competition that you might have an edge over the other defenders because of your background as an actor? And do you feel you might be able to better handle the pressure of the debates?
I'm sort of smiling as I hear this question. I certainly hope so. I do definitely think, it's something I'm used to. I'm used to being on camera. I'm used to speaking extemporaneously. I'm used to, performing to some degree. And I think those things all make that easier for me. By the same token, I'm used to playing other people and not necessarily myself. The pressure that I feel is, what if I say something stupid or I misspeak and it's me that's on the line for that.
Hmm.
So I think that that's my biggest worry. I think the biggest competition that I face with respect to those pieces. I mean, certainly Michael Grey Eyes is also an actor and well versed in all the same things. But Matea Roach is a debate champ, as far as I know, champ. Certainly a Jeopardy champ. We all know that. But with a history as a debater, and I think really ultimately what this is a debate about books. So I'm really kind of boning up on my debate skills currently.
Oh, good, good.
So while you're boning up on your debate skills, do you have like a process for reading all 5 books as you're getting ready for it?
Well, I certainly went through them all. So I read Greenwood and then I put Greenwood aside and started on all the rest of them. Ultimately, I finished Station 11, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago now, I guess maybe 2 weeks ago or something, and then went back to Greenwood and reread it. And as I went along, if you've seen my posts where I have the book just, layered and layered with all these little tabs all over them, really went through with a fine tooth comb and looked back at the book, which is an interesting thing to do once you know the story and you know the characters. And I was beginning to form my argument in my mind. So looking back, I was often plucking things that supported the way that I want to debate this book. And then I'm doing the same with the other books as well. And just now I'm on my second read of the other books. And just, I have been again working on my arguments, working on what I think what they are going to use as this is why you should read it. And then trying to come up with my rebuttals for those. And it's just really like a methodical process of looking in detail at all these books and then trying to pinpoint where I think they're going to go and where I can rebut those things.
Was there any part of you that when they asked you to be on the program that you thought, no, I can't do it? Or were you just like gung ho from the get go?
No, although there are moments right now where I think that I'm like, what have I gotten myself into? I'm watching some of the past years and you sort of see how different personalities interact and how so like when they called me, I was all in. They had actually interviewed me a couple of years ago and I was not selected. And I was really, really genuinely devastated by it. Like so much so that I stopped listening to the show. I was like, I just can't. And so when they called, I was like, yeah, I'm in. I don't care. But certainly now at this moment, as I'm really facing it, and I spoke with a friend of mine who was on a couple of years ago, and he said, the night before, you're going to be really nervous. You're going to be thinking about how millions of people are watching you. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? You're just thinking about your little radio with just you in your car, and you're not kind of putting it together that millions of people are going to be listening to what you are saying. And also, I think, look, at the end of the day, and I'm going to say this in every quarter that I can say it in, these are all good books. And so it genuinely pains me to take a book that somebody worked tremendously hard on and has succeeded with, obviously, for it to be on this list, and then to try to go in and pull it apart and unravel it, or denigrate it is not really the right word, but I've got to find some things and put a spotlight on them and make them seem larger than perhaps they are in terms of being the problem of the book in order to try to sell my book as the winner. And I find that to be daunting. I find it's, watching, sometimes you would see the person who's defending kind of, it's hard not to feel a sense of, not ownership is not the right thing, but like, if they say something bad about the book, to take it personally, on behalf
Yeah.
of the author, I think.
Yeah. I just discovered this just a few days ago. One of my friends said, do you have this in the back on the very last page of your copy of Greenwood? And there's this on the very, very, very last page, there's this little sort of stamp. Did you
Hmm.
notice that?
Right off the bat. Yes. Yes, actually. Yeah. It's even in one of my posts.
Oh my gosh, that's so wild because I didn't even see it. And I always read the author's note at the end, but I
Hmm.
guess I just didn't go far enough and look at that very last page. So anyway, I'm not going to say what it is, but others can go to their copy and look at it and you're going to just be amazed. I thought that was such a cool thing they threw in right at the very end of the book.
Yes, me too. That and the woodcut on the side of the book, I just think it's like a piece of art. It is a piece of art,
Oh, it
along
is.
with
Yeah.
your book that is also a piece of art.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm kind of bummed I don't have my own copy though. So I read the book a few years ago, Keegan, when it first
Mhm.
came out, but I borrowed it from the library. So I haven't purchased my own copy. So I haven't reread it yet for the competition. So I can't remember what the stamp is.
I'll screenshot it to you
Okay.
after the after
That would
the
be awesome. Thank you. Because I'm like sitting here going, well, I don't know what the stamp is.
There is, in my feed, recently when I did a little post, I show it when I'm
Okay.
talking about the woodcut pattern, design of the side of the book.
Okay. Well, I will check it out. Awesome. Thank you. I think I am going to. I was debating about whether or not to reread it because it is a nice honker of a book.
It is
Yeah.
among the largest of them, yes.
Yeah. But as we talk about it and I've talked about it with other friends and I've seen stuff online, I think I need to borrow it from my mom because she recently purchased it to read it. So I think I need
Nice.
to reread it. Yeah.
And it's always good to hold it in your hands, that's for sure.
Yeah.
and I wanna reread it because I just loved it so much. Once you sort of know what happens, I kinda wanna go back now and see sort of the foreshadowing of things as you go once you know everything, so
Yes,
I think.
indeed.
Okay, so my next question is, do you have a strategy? So when you will you vote in the moment, or do you kinda have a plan of what you might do? Because, sometimes they try to vote the best book off first, and some players are kinda, or I shouldn't say players, but defenders are strategic and some are not. So do you have a plan kind of going in?
Certainly I'm not gonna tip my hand.
Right.
I think for me, it's a mixture of both because you don't know how people are going to play that on the day. And you have to be able to kind of roll with how that goes. And also, as I go back and watch some previous years, I'm going to see how it unfolds a little bit better and kind of remind myself of that. But ultimately, I think all I can do is be really, really deeply prepared, know these books really well, know my book really well, and just try to read the temperature of the room, I guess. Just, I was thinking about it the other day, just even when you do the first vote, well, if I'm the first person to say, this is the book that didn't, speak to me versus the fourth person to say that,
Mhm.
I think that changes how I might respond. For example, if the others say, well, we didn't like this book and that's not my book, but three of them have said they don't like it, well, it might behoove me to pile on. So I think it's a lot of in the moment kind of decisions based on a lot of research beforehand.
Yeah, and that's the part I think would be so hard is you don't know which way to go because, I've only been watching for like the last, 6 years or something. That's when I discovered it. But sometimes I feel like you have to be careful too because then if your book is still on, you gotta be worried about how the next people are gonna vote if you vote against their book. You know what I mean? There's just this whole strategy to it.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the personalities of the people who are defending the book. This seems like a nice crowd that I
Mhm.
think will vote with their hearts and their minds. And I don't know. It's impossible to know until the moment that we're there.
Keegan, the last several years, there's always in one of the episodes a moment where they have a little video of the authors in which the authors are telling the defenders what they will give them if their book should win.
Hmm.
Do you have anything that you would like Michael Christie to give you?
When I was watching, I saw that and I thought, what would I want? And what
Yeah.
would I want him to say? And there's a part of me that just thinks I would love to see what Michael comes up with
Mhm.
because I think we've started to get to know each other. We've spoken quite a bit, and I would be really curious to see what would strike him to say about that. Certainly, he has a place on Galliano Island, and I've never been there, and so I would love to come and meet him there and just walk in this beautiful natural island that is akin to what Greenwood Island is in the book,
Mhm.
just have that experience of being outdoors. He said he's a carpenter, talk about trees, talk about nature, talk about books. Sounds pretty fabulous to me.
That sounds pretty fabulous. Yeah.
Keegan, thank you so much for being on today. We are really excited for this year's competition. You sort of said it. The defenders all seem really wonderful. The books are spectacular, and I think it's going to be one of the most competitive years, but we want to wish you great success because we both really loved Greenwood, and we are so excited to see how well you do, and we're confident that you will do a great job. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me on, and send all of the good vibes to me and to Michael Christie and to his beautiful book, Greenwood. I think it really is the book that all of Canada should read, and I will explain how I think it can shift all of our perspectives.
Awesome. I can't wait to hear it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on our bookish journey. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing Canada Reads American Style wherever you listen. You can connect with the podcast and Rebecca on Instagram at Canada Reads American Style and with Tara at On a Branch Reads. Until next time, keep reading.